Today's lecture is devoted to the history of American English. By the time large-scale British resettlement colonization began, a significant number of Native American peoples already lived there, carriers of a huge number of indigenous languages. English-speaking groups continued to dominate the migration flow in the United States until the beginning of the War of Independence in 1776, when out of 2.8 million Americans, an absolute majority, 82% of whites, were English Protestants. American English is greatly simplified. As with the rest of the world, this process was necessitated. Ordinary, simple people who left all the past behind, went to America in the hope of finding happiness. And they needed a simple and affordable way to communicate, which would unite all nationalities. Essential influence on the language had significant differences in the life and lifestyle of the colonists in the United States and Great Britain. A different climate, nature, environment and life led to the adaptation and emergence of new words and concepts in local English. This category includes words that originated in the United States and have not spread in England. In America, as in Britain, there are its accents. The American standard is called General American, and then the variations begin. All of them, for the most part, relate to vowels, but there are also dialectics, and few legible dialects. The sound R is pronounced much more often than in British English. For example, words like car, park or prefer will be pronounced with a clear R. In General American there is a simple rule: if the letter R is written, then it must be pronounced. Americans pull this sound a little and take it in the nose. And the Americans can pronounce the letter A as A ligature or as alpha. However, the rules will differ. In such words as laugh, path, grass, plant, dance, branch, demand, sample, etc., the Americans will say A ligature, and the British, alpha. In words such as father, bard, calm, the British will pronounce the letter A as long alpha, while Americans will have a much shorter sound and will rather resemble turned V. Neutral sound schwa is most common in American English. In Britain, pronunciation will immediately tell the other person to which class you belong. For a long time, non-prestigious accents were ridiculed. Americans are fighting for equality and tolerance, so the accent is not so strictly judged. American English readily got rid of contrived British rules. Vowels in American English are not pronounced as clearly as in Britain, hence the reduction, that is, the reduction of these vowels to a neutral short sound schwa. The British clearly echo the sound turned alpha, which makes it look like a short O, for example, in the words dog, hot, what. Americans, however, pronounce the sound more relaxed, because of what many students by ear confuse it with the sound A. But with diphthong schwa u, everything is different. The British do not denigrate it at all, and the Americans say a clear sonorous O. In many regions of America, the rule is, if the letter T is not at the beginning of a word, then it will be pronounced either almost as D or not at all. Thus, the words ladder and butter can easily be heard as ladder and buter, and the words interview and international turn into interview and international. Moreover, if Americans omit T, then one might get the impression that they are uttering the same word. Only practice will help here. One of the American trends is the manner of not lowering the intonation at the end of a statement, but raising, because of what the proposals sound like a question. Some studies have shown that both New Zealand and the west coast of America can be considered the birthplace of upspeak. The word can be written in both variants of the language in the same way, but pronounced differently. Such words must be simply remembered. Here are some words with different accents depending on the language version. Everyone knows that Americans speak English a little differently, not the way people in the UK, Australia or even Canada do. Also, we all know that there are some differences that manifest themselves in both written and oral speech. American English shows many different influences from different cultures and languages of the peoples who settled in North America. Words or phrases of American origin that are used only in America are called Americanisms. American English has always shown a marked tendency to use nouns as verbs. Examples of this phenomenon are interview, advocate, vacuum, lobby, room, pressure. American English sometimes prefers words that are morphologically more complex, while British English uses short forms in American English, transportation, and in British English, transport. The grammatical differences between American and British English are found mainly in the verb system and tense usage patterns, but they are not so significant as to interfere with communication between speakers of different language variants. The main causes of such discrepancies are unification and a tendency to simplify the language in the American version. Verbal nouns are more often formed to research, and research. The form of shall never be used, most often it will or gonna replace it, short for going to. The words slowly and really are practically not used, they are replaced by slow and real. From the irregular verbs only extra problems are sure the Americans. Therefore, many verbs that are incorrect in British English have become correct in American, for example, to spoil. In 1828, saw the light of the American Dictionary of the English Language, on which the linguist Noah Webster worked for about 20 years. This dictionary included about 70,000 definitions, 40,000 of which were not previously encountered in any dictionary. At one time he was inferior in importance, perhaps, only to the Bible. Some standards of the American language were already recorded in it, which brought the language out of such an uncertain position. The next 2 decades after the release of the first edition of his dictionary, Webster devoted it to improvement. It is not surprising that a unique dictionary, compiled with such thoroughness and enthusiasm, quickly gained great popularity. In 1843, after the death of Webster, the rights to its publication were acquired by the Merriam brothers. The company Merriam-Webster, which they founded, has since been releasing Webster's dictionary. During the world historical development, the center of economic activity moves from UK to USA. American English acquired international importance after World War II because the U.S. began to play a crucial role in the post-war reconstruction of the world. In today's oral American language, the language rules are almost completely absent. For example, as for the various abbreviations, the replacement of letters and sounds, etc., here, sometimes, almost every American does everything he wants. In the traditional context of language teaching, English as an additional language is usually based on the standards of either British or American English. However, with the advent of the Spanish language in the USA, the concept of a single supranational standard to which both UK and US norms contribute may no longer exist. Thus, in particular, explains that the Spanish language is having a greater influence in the rapidly expanding area of American English. For the first time, Archibald Gaika introduced the term Canadian English as a popular trend in the next 100 years. So, Canadian English is a mixture of American and British English, to which is added a good portion of French, the language of the Indians, as well as stable expressions formed by Canadians who are used only there. By the way, the vocabulary has the name Canadicism, lexicosemantic variants of words that are not used anywhere else except Canada. Full Canadians have no analogues in American and British English, for example, long glennerman, fisherman, salt, waterfall, musseg, swamp. Partial Canadisms can be found in English, but they have a unique meaning. So, band is a group of Indians, smaller than a tribe, while in Standard English, it is just a group of people. Borrowing came from French and began to be used in Canada along with local vocabulary. Words like sogamite, soup with meat and fish, sastrugi, snowdrifts, are generally known. Here come the recourses for this lecture. Many thanks for your attention.